invite you to relax. No? Okay? No. Not on? Well, I'm on. I don't like it, but I am. 1 second. Okay, well, while you're waiting, I think all of you can probably hear me. Just take a moment to breathe. Now? No.
Action! Wow! It just needed the magic touch, and maybe I just needed a little feel-good energy here from Jim. Thank you.
Stay behind him. Stay there.
Hypnotize him. What are you doing, Jim?
I couldn't hear it.
Am I on? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, in a few minutes, in just a few seconds, I'm going to invite you to begin to relax for a meditation experience. And I want to promise you I'm not going to ask anyone to quack like a duck or do any crazy things. There are actually many different ways in which hypnosis is used. And most of you are all familiar with the stage variety. And that's one form. Also, there is a very deep form of hypnosis which is used in the medical profession. You can actually help someone go deep enough into a trance that surgery can be performed on them. I'm not going to talk about that today, and I'm not going to talk about stage hypnosis. I'm going to talk about it as a process that you can use yourself, or you can use with the assistance of a hypnotherapist who is a guide, who can help you go in and make contact with your own subconscious mind to bring about transformation. It's a very gentle process. It's a very loving process. Hypnosis in this context is simply a very relaxed, focused state of mind. And those of you who come here frequently, I know many of you also go to the Science of Mind Center. You know what creative visualization is. You know what your guided meditation is. And that's really a very easy, gentle form of hypnosis. Anytime you relax, anytime you get your attention totally focused on one thing, you are in a hypnotic trance. You're also in and out of hypnotic trances all day. How many of you have had the experience of going somewhere, you get somewhere and you can't remember exactly how you drove the car there? But you were so focused on where you were going and your mind was totally somewhere else. And that, in a sense, is another form of a hypnotherapy trance, where you're just so present, so focused. It's also the case when you're really working on something you love. Maybe you're writing, or you're on the computer and you're just immersed in some kind of website that is really speaking to you. You're reading a book. You really close out the other world. I had a very interesting experience once. My first career was as a court reporter. And one day I was sitting in a restaurant, and I was writing and I was reading, and all of a sudden this man tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Are you a court reporter?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I thought so, because no one else could be so focused on something that someone could drop a whole tray of plates next to them and they didn't move." That's the power of being in a hypnotic trance. So let's just begin to relax for a minute and just become comfortable. I invite you to just take a deep breath. And let it go. And another deep breath. Relaxing more deeply and letting go. Just very gently brush away the day. Brush away the morning, brush away the afternoon, and allow all your energy to simply be here, centered right now. This is the moment. This is your moment of power. And in this moment, you are in a special, secret place. A place no one else can enter but you. What happens here is between you and your deeper self. And the most important thing is love. Just knowing within you is a well of pure love that has nothing to do with anything or anyone outside of you. I invite you to imagine it as a spring of water, just gently bubbling, warm, and it's just sending off a steam that is just permeated with love. Loving thoughts, loving feelings, and it just radiates through your entire body, caressing, blessing every cell, every atom of your being, and every aspect of your mind. So warm, so comfortable, so peaceful. You are love. You are filled with love. The love that transcends human judgment. That pure, unconditional love of spirit. And just feel it sort of gently caressing your body, moving around you, within you. And take another deep breath and just melt into that love. Just imagine yourself just melting into this feeling of pure love. Pure light. Infinite goodness. All is well. All is well. And be aware that this love, this energy, is with you at all times, in all places. And all you need to do to feel this energy is take a deep breath and say to yourself, I return to love. I return to love. It only takes few seconds. You can do it while you're waiting at a stop sign. You can definitely do it when you mute television commercials. It's always there. Just using that, I return to love as a way to center yourself, to experience the truth of who you truly are. The presence, the power, the concept of pure love expressing in human form. And I invite you to take just a moment now with yourself to just give thanks to yourself for all the blessings of your life. Now you can just begin to return to a fully awakened state of consciousness. Just take another deep breath and just imagine yourself breathing yourself up into this glorious day, this beautiful place, being so grateful for all you are and all you have. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you, and so it is. So it really doesn't matter what you call that. You can call that guided meditation, you can call that hypnosis, you can call that trance, you can call that just saying affirmations. It's all pretty much the same thing. It's an energy that really helps you become who you are. As long as man has existed on the planet, man has been practicing hypnosis. It has had different names, but all shamanic trances are a form of hypnosis. You know, in the healing traditions of shamanism, most of the time a trance is involved at some level. When I worked with Sarita Vasquez, who absolutely was one of the most incredible beings I have ever encountered, she truly modeled for me what is meant by being unconditionally loving. When you were with her 100%, she was with you 100%. The interesting thing was, when she was through with you, she was through with you. And if you walked down the street the next day and said, "Hi, Sarita," she would have thought, "Well, I wonder who that is." Because she had her way of being and her way of functioning, and it was incredibly effective. I had the incredible privilege of watching her straighten someone's spine. You know, this woman came in a wheelchair to a seminar, and Sarita worked on her, and you know, she used a lot of other things besides talk. She also used a lot of, you know, Toltec shamanic traditions, herbs and smoke and different things. But she was, to me, it was the love that was doing the healing. It was that getting in touch with that woman's soul and really giving that woman permission to be who she truly was. And there were about 7 of us there, and just watching this process was an incredible turning point in my life, seeing the power that is truly available and being in the presence of someone you know would never, ever use it for anything but good. And just knowing that presence of pure love. Anyway, this woman's fine, we just watched. And she got up and walked around and walked out of the seminar. And then there's that thought, well, did it really work? Okay? Because in many more traditional or charismatic traditions, we see a lot of spiritual healing take place. And often it doesn't last. It doesn't last because it was a hit. You know, you go into a high-powered, whether it's a seminar or a church service, a revival, And there's all that energy, and it's bouncing off the walls, and you get caught up in it. And it's a form of hypnosis. You can do anything, and you can do anything for a very brief period of time. So often some of those people who get up and walk or experience a healing, you know, a week later they're right back where they started because there wasn't a real deep transformation. In the ancient Hindu traditions, and today in the Hindu yogi traditions, I mean, those yogis put themselves in trances. They could slow their heartbeat. They go into a very deep delta brainwave state, you know, maybe 1 or even a half. If you get to 0, you're dead. You're not coming back unless you can find a resurrector. But they get down so deep that it appears they're not even breathing. They're not even there. But they're in control of it, because even though they're that deep and they're that in control, when they decide it's over, they just come back. They've probably trained themselves in some way to have this amazing ability to go down, to stay down, to say up and come up. Hypnosis in the Western world really began with Anton Mesmer, who was a German physician who practiced in Paris in the 18th century. And he used a lot of things. He used basically a form of hypnotherapy that is similar to what a hypnotherapist will do today. He also was into magnets and different things, trying to control the subtle energies of the body. And he brought forth a lot of healings and did a lot of good work. He was also labeled as a charlatan and expelled from several different things. But he made a statement, and it was a powerful statement. And then his work was continued and improved upon several years later by a man named James Braid from England. And James Braid, to many people, is considered the father of hypnotherapy. But in our own country, in the 20th century, was the man who most of us today really recognize as the premier example, the prime leader of hypnotherapy, and that was Dr. Milton Erickson, who was a psychiatrist. He actually was able to have the American Medical Association accept hypnosis as a tool, which it had been saying it was a no-no, you know, it was not acceptable. He was absolutely an amazing hypnotherapist. He used a form of talk therapy. He rarely put anyone into what we would consider a trance. You know, he didn't go, you're getting tired, you're getting sleepy, look at the clock, listen. No. But he could talk in such a way that he was able to direct people where he wanted to take them. And as he took them where he wanted to go, they became transformed. One of the examples that I thought was the most interesting was a little boy who was about, I think he was about 10, and he'd been a bedwetter. And his parents were just appalled, and they were just so upset with him, and he was in trouble every morning. He was getting in trouble. So guess what this kid had developed, right? He had developed a strong belief system. I am a bedwetter. Anything we say to ourselves enough, we become. So this child, in a way, between what his parents told him and what he used his self-talk for, created himself as a confirmed bedwetter. So finally, in desperation, his parents took him to Milton Erickson because they heard that Erickson could cure anything. So Erickson sat this kid down and he said, well, I understand you like to wet your bed. And the kid said, well, no, I don't like to wet my bed, but I do. And he said, well, it's okay to like it. It's really all right. You know, you don't have to give this up. If you want to be a bedwetter, that's your absolute right to be a bedwetter. And he just wove this whole story around for about 20 minutes about how it was okay, and when you want to change, you will, and it doesn't matter if your parents are upset, it's their problem. The kid never wet his bed again. We are all at some level looking for permission, aren't we? We're looking for permission to be who we want to be able to express how we want to express. And that's something that a really good hypnotherapist can help you do. But it still is your choice. No one can make you do something you don't at some level want to do. One of my main teachers in spirituality, New Thought Unity, was a woman who kept saying to me, no one can hit you over the head unless at some level you've given them permission to do it. Now that's a pretty absolutist statement. But what most of us here are committed to, I think, I know a lot of you are, is giving up victim consciousness and accepting, I accept responsibility for my life. I am willing to do what I need to do to transform that, to be the person I know within myself I truly am. And all hypnosis, affirmations, the whole process is geared to do that exact thing. My personal introduction to hypnotherapy was in 1979. And I was driving in my car in Tucson, Arizona, and on the radio station, this woman was advertising a seminar she was going to give on self-hypnosis to quit smoking. And I started listening. I actually pulled over to the side of the road and listened for a few minutes. And she kind of explained briefly what she was going to do and how it worked. And she charged this particular amount of money, which at that time in my life was just not even remotely optional. But I started thinking about it. I'd been active in Science of Mind for several years at that time, so I thought, well, I know how to affirmations. I know how this sort of works. So I decided I would do that, but I wouldn't go to her seminar. I would just do it myself. And she said, you know, you can change anything in 21 days, and lots of teachers say that. So I thought, okay. So I sat down and I wrote out this little script, and I started with the idea, okay, if I'm a spiritual being, and that's the real truth of me, a spiritual being can't smoke. You know, like that scene from Ghost where they're trying to get cigarettes out of the gutter. You know, a spiritual being can't smoke. So in truth, I am a non-smoker. And I thought about that for a few minutes. I went, okay. So I wrote out this little script, and I made a commitment that what I would do is I would take the normal amount of cigarettes that I smoked, and I would cut it down so I could only have 10 a day. So I would become, that was the outer part, to become really mindful that I was smoking instead of just, you know, it's just a habit. When you have a habit like that, it's just a habit. You just do it. You don't think. So that was the mindful part. And then I wrote this script, and I started with, I am a non-smoker, and it's as if I've always been a non-smoker. It's simply the way it is. And for 20 minutes, twice a day, I just went through this very brief, relaxing thing where I did some breathing and counted down a staircase to 10 and got deeper and deeper. And then I just sat there for 20 minutes and said that I am a non-smoker, and it's as if I've always been a non-smoker. And my mind, you know, our minds, even when you get yourself relaxed, they're flitting here and they're flitting there. But every time another thought would come in, I would just say, that's fine, I'll think about you later. Right now, I'm knowing I am a non-smoker. And I just kept doing it. I did it twice a day. And I figured, well, okay, 21 days from now, we'll see if this really worked. On the morning of the 10th day, I woke up, and I looked at the cigarettes, and I thought, I don't want one. Interesting. Okay, but I can have one later if I want one. At dinner, I realized not only had I not had one all day, I hadn't thought about it all day. And I hadn't thought to do my programming anymore either. I lived with the time with a man who was a chain smoker. We went out to dinner. I never said a word to him. 3 days later, he looked at me and he said, did you quit smoking? And I said, yes, I am now a non-smoker. And about 6 weeks later, one of my children and I had some kind of tragedy. I can't remember now what it even was. But it was one of those things, you know, that triggers you, that you get you all excited. And I thought, oh, I need a cigarette, I need a cigarette. So I thought, well, I mean, if I really want one, I can have one. So I went to the store, I bought a pack of cigarettes, I lit one, and I will tell you, it was as if I had never, ever, ever been a smoker. And the taste, I mean, it was just like the most horrible thing I could imagine. So, I mean, it was a really powerful thing that worked. Here's the secret. I was ready for it to work. Because I've done it with lots of things. And sometimes it works beautifully. It's not magic. Hypnosis is not magic. I think many of us get into magic thinking, especially when you read a lot of ads that are written by people who are trained in hypnotic writing. Who are the best hypnotherapists? Madison Avenue, right? I mean, they know how to put those phrases together in such a way that you are immersed in the feeling of how that product is going to transform your life in amazing, amazing ways. But there is so much more to it. You have to want it, and you have to be willing to change. You know, a hypnotherapist can really help you, but you can do it yourself, and I proved that to myself over and over and over. And I've also proved to myself that it doesn't work when I'm not willing to make changes. So one of the questions I ask myself when I get an idea about something I want to create or change is, am I willing to be changed at death? Because something that you change is going to change not only that one thing, but it is going to transform other aspects of your life. I discovered when I became a non-smoker that there were a few people who were really uncomfortable around me. I didn't become an evangelist. I never said a word to anybody. But people would say, that, I can remember one woman saying, who was a good friend, saying, well, I could never do that. You know, it was like, I guess it's a form of jealousy or envy or something instead of, and I said, well, you could if you really did it. If you really wanted to, you could. But she didn't like that. It's about yourself. It's really always about you. What do you want? What are you willing to create? You know, this idea of the magical 21 days is a great idea, but it isn't magic and it isn't set in stone. People make changes instantly when they decide to. But the process can help you. And you can do it in a way that is less threatening. If you say, okay, I am a very shy person and I would like to become a public speaker, but I don't think I can. And I'm too afraid and I don't want to. You wouldn't start by saying, I'm going to get up and give a speech. You might start by saying, I am willing to give up a little of this fear. And get to the point where you could actually imagine yourself doing it for 2 minutes. We don't have to change all at once. It's great when we can. But the process always works, in my opinion, and you can throw out my opinion because that's what I love about Open Circle is it's all about you and what you think. But if you're willing to engage in the process, it will work. It's a process. It's not magic. There have been so many examples of incredible transformations. But the mind really does control the body. And one of the most powerful examples that I had in my training was Carl Simonton, who was a therapist, doctor, who dealt primarily with cancer patients, and he became very well known for his work with creative visualization in cancer patients. He was the one who had people imagine Pac-Man eating up their cancer cells and things like that. And it worked for many people, and for many people it didn't work. But he gave the example in a lecture I went to, and it wasn't him. He wasn't the one who had actually treated this woman, but it is published in the journal, so it can be researched. But there was a woman with multiple personality disorder. And in her main personality, she had diabetes to the degree she had to take insulin shots. When she switched to another personality, her blood sugar levels were absolutely normal. And the instant she switched back to her main personality, her diabetes was there and she needed an injection. Now, when I think that things are not possible, I remind myself of that because I think, wait a minute, what are we doing to ourselves with our programming? It's always so interesting, and I really appreciated the opportunity to be prepared to be with you today because that always causes me to go back and relook at everything and think about the process and think about everything. And I really came up with something that I did not want to deal with. But I thought about it more and more, and I realized how I have hypnotized myself probably the majority of my life, and it probably started with my mother. around the idea that I am a very healthy person, but I'm not fit. And that has been my reality. I mean, I went to the doctor the first time in 35 years the other day. And I'm healthy, but that fitness level, because I had these maiden aunts who took care of me when I was little, and don't go on the swing, it's so dangerous, you'll hurt yourself, you know. It's just like all this fear about being physically active. And the only sport I ever exceeded in was swimming, because it was in the water and it felt very safe to me. But it was just like, oh, wait a minute, I could rethink that. What have I been doing for the last 70 years? You know, let's change that. So we'll see what I do with that. But it was interesting to have that awareness. And awareness is the first step. It's the first step. Then you get to decide, am I going to do anything about it, or am I going to just say, well, that's the way it is and it's okay. Some things may not be worth going through the trouble. You know, in Spanish I love the saying, vale la pena. You know, is it worth the trouble or worth the effort to do it? Well, lots of things are and some things just aren't. And you're always the judge. You're always the judge of what you want to create, of how you want it to play out in your life. Just really considering what it is you want and realizing you can do it. When you're creating a script, there are just a few things that I would encourage you to really be mindful of. The first thing, your subconscious does not distinguish between now and tomorrow and next year and maybe and become. It is very present moment oriented. Everything is being recorded as if it were happening now. Whether it's recording an experience you're having today somewhere, or it's recording a thought process that you're playing, a creative visualization you're doing. So you always want it to be present. I am now. When I did the smoking thing, it was I am a non-smoker and it's as if I've always been one. And someone said, well, how did you rationalize that with the fact that 20 minutes later you lit a cigarette? Well, because in truth that I have chosen, and your truth is whatever you want your truth to be. It's not an absolute thing. So when you say the truth of me is that I'm a non-smoker, then even if you're not living that up exactly perfectly in a given moment, you can turn that around. And you can say, well, okay, but right now I'm just having a cigarette, but that's just because I'm really getting to the point where I realize how deeply the truth is that in that center of my being, I am a non-smoker. That's the truth. So it isn't a question of making a statement and then coming back and saying, okay, I blew it. That's how most of us do with things. Diets, of course, are the wonderful one, and that's one I still haven't totally mastered. But I've made progress. But it's that understanding that this is the moment of change. In Hawaiian shamanism, there's a saying, manawa. And what it means is, now is the moment of power. Now is the moment of power. Manawa. And to know that right now what you're saying is very, very powerful. And your subconscious is recording it. And you need to be doing it in the now when you're trying to bring forth the change. I am now. It needs to be positive. Now that non-smoker, that was the most positive thing I could come up with because it gave me an image. And I would do a little visualization where I would see myself at dinner with people. And this was of course in the days when you could smoke in restaurants. And other people would light cigarettes and I wouldn't because I was a non-smoker. And it was just, that was part of my little programming that I did. So, you know, you don't want to say, I am not smoking, or I am not sick, or I am not shy, or I'm not, you want to really get into an image. I use the word end result oriented. What is the end result you're looking for? And that's what you want to incorporate into your script that you write for yourself if you're going to use this process. So you want to be present. You want to be positive. You want it to be now. You want it to be end result oriented. And it's great to make it colorful and emotional. If you can get some emotion in it, if you think of some of the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, especially some of those wonderful ones that we picked up in our childhood when perhaps a parent was angry with us, we got it with a lot of emotion. In Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, the example that just speaks to me so beautifully is the example of the mother who came home after a horrible day, and her little girl was dancing around and singing and having so much fun, and the mother just had a headache and felt rotten and just screamed at the little girl, "Shut up, you have a terrible voice. I don't want to hear you." That little girl, that emotion, that mother who had always been so loving, it just went right into her. And that became her life script. I have a terrible voice. No one wants to hear me. Not only did she stop singing, she stopped being she'd been a very outgoing little girl. She became very withdrawn. She wouldn't answer questions in class. She just sort of huddled. And it took years of therapy for her to get to the point where she overcame that. Now, was the mother being bad? Was the mother being terrible? No. No, it's just, we're human. And we all have these days. I could think of things I said to my children that were just horrible. I've asked them to forgive me many times. So, but if you can get positive emotion behind an instruction, that's just perfect. This is very, very powerful stuff. And you are the driver. You're in the driver's seat. You get to choose. And while I believe some things are not too probable, anything is possible because this energy is infinite, incredible, and available to you in every moment of every day of your life.
Thank you very much. And we have time already. Is there anyone who has questions or would like to? Okay, we have a couple over here, and they're taking the mic to them. So if you would stand and hold the mic about like this.
You never told us if the lady that had her spine straightened stayed straightened.
Well, to this, I don't know about today, but, weeks later we went back to another seminar. She walked in. She said she felt great, so I'm hopeful that it did. There's no way to tell.
Two-part question. Number one, exactly how did you do your meditation, or what? Like, did you just repeat a mantra over and over? And the second part, did you continue it after 10 days when you had been cured?
Okay. I created, what I basically said was just that mantra. It was kind of like a mantra. I'm a non-smoker. It's as if I've always been a non-smoker. It's just the way it is. And that was kind of the key. And as I did that, then occasionally, like other little thoughts would come in of it. I don't really enjoy it or something like that. So that would be fine. And I added that visual of seeing myself, because I hung out with a whole group of people and a lot of them did smoke. So I added that visual of seeing myself at a dinner table and a few people lit cigarettes because they were smokers and I wasn't, so I didn't. And, that was exactly what I did.
Did you sit down and have a quiet time
Oh, I
to do
did.
this? So
Absolutely.
maybe you could describe that.
I would sit, I took like 2 20-minute periods a day, which is what this woman had said. And I did it at lunch, so what I did is I went to lunch, I had a cigarette, I went to my car, and I sat in my car in a park for 20 minutes and I relaxed myself. I counted down 10 counts with 10 breaths down a flight of stairs and just imagined myself sitting on a very beautiful beach, stretched out on the sand, and then I just started saying that, and I started, just repeating it over and over. And then if negative or other thoughts came in my mind, I said, thank you, I'll think about you later, and then I'd just go right back and start it again. And so I would just do that, and I just kind of had myself, I had a little, stopwatch, and when it dinged, and I was through.
Did you say the mantra to yourself at any other time while you were in the
I
office?
did when I was thinking about it, if I was just at work or something. As the days went by, it started playing more and more. When I had that day where I didn't smoke, it was interesting because for some reason it didn't even occur to me to do the process. It was as if something had shifted, and that was now the truth. So there was no need to think about it or talk about it or program it because it was done. So no, I didn't keep doing it after.
Any other questions out here? Okay.
I couldn't help but wondering if the word mesmerizing came from anti-mesmerism.
Oh, yes, it did. Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, I had that in my notes to say. We all use that word. He was mesmerized, or he was a mesmerizing speaker or teacher or whatever. Yes, it did. It came from anti-mesmerism.
Hold it fairly close.
I wonder if you believe that you talked about dieting being a hard one for you, or harder, or longer. Do you believe that overeating, dieting, binging is harder than other
I think it's,
things to change, and why?
okay. First of all, I think it is harder because with smoking, you're going to be a smoker, you're a non-smoker. You can't stop eating. So, you know, right there, you've got to really do a lot more work. You have, and a lot of us have very strong messages about food and how we interact with food. I mean, I've gained 5 pounds since I moved down here 6 months ago because my whole social life is about let's go eat. And so I was thinking about that, you know, I need to figure that one out. But a lot of us have different messages that we got. Okay, I'm going to share something kind of personal, but I was never overweight until I went to ministerial school. And when I went to ministerial school, they took all the female, soon-to-be ministers, and did this workshop with us where they told us we could not express our sexuality. We had to be very careful how we expressed our sexuality with the people we were serving. And both the women who taught this seminar were wonderful teachers, they were wonderful women, and they were both overweight. And, you know, and over the years, as I have thought about it, I thought, you know, they programmed me with this is how to be a powerful minister. And they were both very powerful women. And I know 2 other of my classmates who also, I gained 40 pounds while I was in ministerial school. And I've gotten it off a couple times, but it snuck back on. And I've just come to this amazing realization the other day, I'm no longer a minister. I can be as sexual as I want to be. So I'm going to really start a process for that.
Okay, we have a question here, and then you.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed your talk immensely. It seems there may be some value in looking at hypnosis in light of seeing the universe as a holographic model where every part contains a whole. So in that recognition, one realizes, wow, I've got access to every single part of the universe. It's like right there. It's so empowering. It's frightening the forces that want to control mass behavior or something like that. You know? It's like, it's anyway, I don't have to say more. You thank you. I just can't thank you enough.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. There is one therapist who came up with this process he calls quantum leaping. You know, the really old TV series Quantum Leap. And he said, okay, if everything exists as it is right now and everything is possible and you are all in all these different dimensions, there is a dimension in which you already are that which you want to be. So all you have to do is leap into it. And so as part of his process, he sees you just sort of leaping into this new being and new creation of your own energy. Thank you.
I really enjoyed your presentation. Are you practicing now? And if you are, do you work with things like weight loss or
What I do is I will meet with a person who's interested, and we will discuss whether, what you want to create and whether it will work for you. At this point in my life, I will only work with people who I feel are really, really committed to change. In my ministry, I had to kind of deal with anybody who showed up at my doorstep, and I will not work with any more yes buts. So, I am open to serving people who feel that I could really help them. Yeah.
Just to add a little bit to that, I was just talking to a friend the other day about the possibility of running a series of videos, information, and reprogramming for people who would like to eat better and lose weight. So if there are enough people interested in that, if there are 20 or more people interested in it, I will pursue it. If you contact me, then that'll be fine, or you could contact Kathryn. So, any more questions? Oh, we got one here. Please stand.
It was kind of like mine. Do you have a recommended? Do you have a recommended reading list? You mentioned the fourth reading.
Actually, I have many books. In the course of my training. And I would like to make this kind of announcement. My doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy is not the same as a PhD in psychology. It was from a school that was approved by the state of California to offer a specialized doctorate. So just, I want you to have that information. In the course of that process of 90 units plus a dissertation, I probably read 50 or 60 books and wrote over 2,000 pages. So it's really hard to say a book. There are so many, and each one. What I do really believe is if you want to know which book is right for you, just say, I really want the best book for me. Go to Amazon.com, type in self-hypnosis, and go through the list. And I bet one will jump out that will just sort of feel like that's right for me, because there are just tons of them out there. And someday I might write my own. It's always there.
Yeah. I would like to ask the people who are hypnotists or who have been using hypnosis, either self-hypnosis or working with other people, to stand. I know there are several.
Yeah.
Way in the back is one under the... So we have... Wow. We have a lot of people here who have this interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much.
Okay, look around. Maybe someone will just speak to you. Because there's one final thought. I think there's that saying, when you're ready, the teacher comes. And what would be, I might be the perfect person for someone and absolutely the worst person in the world for someone else. So if we just all want to know we're guided for our very highest good to whatever is for our highest good, we'll get it. Thank you.
I would just like to say, I hope that's what I finally thought. Okay, thank you very much for coming. I'd like to, first I'd like to tell you about next week's speaker. And then you can turn your cell phones back on and pick up the coffee cups and stack the chairs. But Verona Cardoza is presenting next week. It's about evolution of humanity as proceeding through the heart, mind, and will of each individual. Evolution is the leading edge of what we and the earth are becoming. In a culture flooded with trivialities, it is not easy to take in something this large and consequential. However, every human being, in addition to having a physical body, has an individual soul within lie the abilities to think, to feel, and to will. In contemporary education, it seems that two of these abilities are being ignored. Rudolf Steiner, creator of the Waldorf system of education in 1919, revealed to us that when we are educated as threefold human beings, we're allowed to participate in the world as whole persons. She was born in Austin, Texas, and she was educated in Mexico City and adopted a Mexican couple from there, and she's educated in English, German, and the arts. One of her photographic projects is in the permanent collection of the Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago. So I think that'll be an excellent follow-up on all the things that we've been going through with evolution and some of the sex in the Bible and hypnosis and belief systems. So thank you very much, and hope to see you next week.